All right, and we are live. Hello, Donald. How are you?
I'm good, Leo. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. We were chatting a little bit offline here, and you come from the Ontario, Canada area, and
Yep.
I'm excited to talk to you. Thank you for being on here and taking the time. Um, Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wisdom Club podcast. We have another exciting session for you. Uh, uh, I'm gonna let Donald tell us all about him uh, in his area and how he got into business where he is now.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks, Leo, for having me. So I'm in Ontario, Southern Ontario, actually, a place called Hamilton, somewhere between Toronto, which a lot of people know about, and Niagara Falls, which a lot of people, even more people know about. So right in the middle is Hamilton, and it is probably one of the hottest markets, I think in the top 10 for North America for competitiveness. Just to give you an idea, between Toronto and a lot of the agents work in Hamilton as well. I have my Toronto license and Hamilton license. There's like 72,000 realtors in Toronto and about another 4,000 here in Hamilton. So it's very, very competitive. Uh, I got into this, if I go back far enough, my background actually is music. And I used to play for a celebrity a little bit, traveled, played my own band, started music up. And yeah, so basically learned that sales at a very young age, that I want to get and play at this pub, or I want to play at this club, or whatever it is, or open for this artist. I need to convince whoever's in charge that this little band that cannot bring any monetary value to them is going to let us play and pay us. So that was a challenge, and probably the hardest sale I've ever done in my career, but did it. And then from that point on, I realized I don't really want to live with my parents' basement anymore.
Yeah.
So I branched out, went into school for marketing, and graduated very high, top of the class in marketing, and landed in sales. Did years in sales, got to know it really well. Thought, hey, my first opportunity was selling advertising space for newsletters, and that was a little soul destroying. But I learned the boiler room effects and how to get past the cold calling. Kind of rose the ranks through sales, and when I was in music, the only companies that would keep me hired were restaurants. So I learned how to the gift of the gab, as some people would talk about there, and renovation companies. So I learned all about the composition of houses and building materials and the costs and all that stuff that's associated with it. And I wasn't really happy in my job selling IT at the time. I don't know anything about computers, to be honest, but I sold IT, and I realized, okay, my future's not here. Where would it be? And I just took all the things from my past and realized that that would lead me to real estate. So started
Wow.
in real estate. Yeah.
There's so much in there, and I'm just my brain is totally lighting up because there's so many
Yeah, go
things
for
that
it.
you and I actually have in common. I also had a music background, but more of I play the piano, and I was in classical music when I was younger, and actually majored in music in college, in piano performance and composition. And then yeah, you're in music. I'd love to know kind of what genre and kind of what instrument you played and stuff like that.
Yeah, so actually, we're even closer in relation because I actually went to school, to college, originally for classical piano. And so I
Okay.
majored with Bach and Chopin
Sure.
back then.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even, but I obviously, there are the musicians who can stick with one instrument and they can get really well at it, and they can be really good at just piano. That wasn't me, because I couldn't pull a piano around with me everywhere, and I realized music was really good to get girls. And so was cooking. So I learned how to cook and play guitar, just so that way
Yeah,
I
it's
could
all
get
about the
with girls
girls. It's
easier.
all about the girls.
Yeah, even still today, it's all about my wife. So it's a matter of,
Yeah.
why do I do this? It's still,
Yeah.
as guys, I feel like it never stops.
Yeah, so
But yeah,
that's great. We don't you as you probably know, you meet a lot of people, every day, there's not a lot of people that chose that kind of education, and I just couldn't be happier about what you learn from that,
oh
as
yeah,
far I mean, uh, money aside, because it's very difficult to make money in music, you either had to be
Hmm.
a genius, literally, right? Or you have to
Yep.
be really, really well connected to somebody that's really well connected in the industry internationally at large to be able to get you jobs or get you the right connection to actually land a job, because jobs in music is just extremely difficult. So, so
Absolutely.
that's. I mean, you talk about competitiveness, right? Like can't get any harder than that. And it's not one of those things that you can just pick up and do. You know, to decide you want to do. You have to either be one of those two things.
Yeah, and I think I remember this stat. I think it was something like there's 50,000 bands in Canada, and every year the if you want to get to the top bands out there, there are only like six new emerging artists every year. So you have like 50,000, 100,000 new bands or more, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and only six get picked.
Yeah.
That's not a percentage I want to be a part of.
Yeah. Same thing with professional sports, right? Like, yeah, there's
Yeah.
only so many jobs. I think I heard there was like, there's only been what 5,000 or so NBA players, in history, like every year. That's all there's been. How many, millions of people, trying to play basketball.
Yeah, and I can't even imagine soccer on a global level will be even worse
Yeah,
because
yeah,
there's
yeah,
billions of people in the world, and yeah.
yeah. So that's got to
So,
make you
but
feel better, that it's competitive in real estate too, but not like that.
oh yeah, so real estate's a breeze, and I'm pretty competitive where I'm at too. So we just got ranked out of the 3,700 and some odd agents in my city. We got ranked at number 22 this past year.
Oh, amazing, amazing. Congratulations to
So
you. So,
thank you.
not everybody gets in this, especially like music and sales don't really go together usually so much. I mean, but it sounds like there was a path for you where you learned, sales, and you mentioned, about also, you know, being in school for marketing, and also you were just involved and just exposed to music through restaurants and somehow into renovations of either buildings and stuff like that, and then went over to selling IT because you learned that you could sell stuff, right? Can you talk
Yeah,
us through some of that stuff?
yeah. So I was never really good at my renovation stuff. The house that I have now, we've completely gutted it, rebuilt it from the inside out. It's not the best renovation in the world, if I'm completely honest. But we did it ourselves, and we saved a ton on labor there. And we're not flipping it, so it's not like we're going to be selling this. We're living in it.
Yeah.
But I had worked so many different sales jobs. So the first one was selling. Well, actually, the first one was probably music, selling myself to venues. But then it would be professionally. I was selling digital ad space for newsletters. That is soul destroying to its core. But I learned how to do cold calling really well at a very, very high level. And then there was like industrial sales, so like forklifts and the scrubber sweepers that happen in factories. Kind of worked in that for a little while. Then I worked for a startup company, again, more marketing based. It didn't last very long because it went under. And at that time, I had just proposed to my wife and bought a house. So I needed to figure out what to do. And then that led me to just, okay, I'll take this job working in Toronto, which is like an hour and a half commute with the lovely, horrible traffic that we have here, which I'm sure in California you have similar problems. Um, and so I did that for a number of years, just selling IT. And I haven't used a PC in I don't know how many years. Everything I use is Mac because of the music background. And so I had to figure out how to sell IT. I knew a bunch of the alphabet soup that makes up the IT world, but I didn't know what it actually meant. So I learned how to sell IT, did it pretty well. I could have done probably better, I think. But then I started the real estate courses, did the real estate, got in, and used my background in sales for that. But with the whole renovation stuff, I was able to apply that and bring education and do educational marketing with clients, also digital marketing, and bring it all together to really skyrocket the
Yeah.
business.
Well, that's the other aspects of it that was interesting to me, is because I worked prior to real estate. I worked in tech for over 15 years, right? And
Okay.
I was doing IT, and I was the director of IT, for a pretty successful, startup in an interactive agency. and so I didn't want to be stuck in an office anymore. So that's the reason I got into real estate. And my mom has been in real estate for over 35 years. So that's why this is very interesting talking with you, because I do have a tech background, and that what's opposite about us is that I didn't have a sales background. I had a music background. I had a IT background coming into real estate. But it turns out, and you might speak to this a little bit, it turns out people don't want me to sell them. They just wanted to talk to me and say, like, how
No.
are you going to help me? I was like, well, I'm a problem solver. That's what we do in IT, solving problems all the time, and literally more of a support role. But as soon as somebody says, oh, no, I'm having issues with this, and we would just, I would just like, hey, let's try this. And have you tried that? Hey, I got this, let me help you with it. More of a support role. Then they decide like, hey, can you help me through this and get this home sold, or if we want to buy a home or things like that, because everybody has problems in real estate. There are problems finding a home,
Yeah.
they have problem financing, they have like it's just really a series of problems, right?
Yeah.
And
That's
so
yeah.
those series of problems, you can slot yourself in any of those capacity to kind of build that relationship from there. And of course, if you give first, then then they're thinking, well, what else can Leo or Donald help me next, you know let's give him a bigger
Yeah.
task, right? And so that's the background that I went through. But what's important about this is that you seem like you have picked up a lot of these skills along the way. And one of the biggest things that I value about music is that you're trying to perfect a certain specific task or skill, whether it's reading music, whether it's studying the composition, about how to actually perform that, or you're tasked with the performance aspects of it. And it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Anybody tried playing a musical instrument, it's probably the hardest thing they would ever do in their lives, right? And so I see that because of that, you were able to go from some very different extreme professions and was able to learn up and adapt, even if you didn't know IT, right?
Exactly. Well, and also back to the music aspect of it, if you look at Baroque music, you have every 4 to 6 bars, depending on the time signature, you have a phrase, right? They would kind of slur them together, even though most of that was written on a harpsichord. So you would have the best way that I learned Bach was learn one bar at a time, then then like play the first bar, play the second bar, then put them together, then play the third bar, then put them together. So eventually you put that phrase together and you practice just a phrase. And then it's almost like every phrase is a new tool that you pick up in real estate or in your life to apply to real estate to create that song, whether it's prelude or fugue. Or for those people who don't know what that is, that's go listen to some Bach. Or Glenn
Yeah.
Gould is probably the most famous. Glenn Gould, I think, is the most famous pianist for Bach, and he actually came from Ontario,
Yeah.
which is
Well,
kind of neat.
yeah, I didn't know he was from Ontario. I know he was Canadian, and he was just they made movies about him, many books about him. Extremely prolific and eccentric guy. And I've spent
Yes.
many years just kind of studying what he does and how it's so unique and what he's done that nobody would ever do ever again. He's like the Michael Jordan of Bach Baroque music.
Bach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No,
Yeah.
for sure.
Awesome. So through that time, like what were some of the memorable things that changed your life as you went through those steps, especially going into, from kind of a musician to a, kind of selling technology, which you didn't know too much about, as you mentioned, and then from selling technology to selling real estate, which you knew some things, but you didn't know a lot. And so, what are some of those challenges that you had?
Challenge wise, I would say is understanding the product, which for me in IT was I learned that that's almost a whole university level or college course that I should have taken to sell that stuff better. But then what I learned early on was that it's everything comes down to someone's pressure points or pain points or whatever. Motivation is what a lot of people would talk about. But if you don't understand what motivation really is, then it's kind of hard to use that in a sentence. And people throw it around all the time. They don't actually use it correctly. So what I found with IT, I didn't have to know anything about IT, actually. All I need to know is who to talk to, and who I need them to talk to. So in real estate, it's the same transferable skills. I don't need to know anything about your mortgage. I just need to know like who you need to talk to and how to get you there, and have enough conversation and hold your hand to get you there. And same with IT sales, all I would do is just have a conversation with them. We're all human. We all enjoy that personal connection. And as stereotypical as it sounds, a lot of the times I would find people who are working for working in IT for companies, a lot of them are kind of nerds. But that's because they are really good at computers, and that's usually a nerdy thing. And the second you start talking to them, asking them questions, and getting to know about their life and getting to know more about them, the more that they're willing to engage. And you'd have a go for coffee, and then I would sit down and talk with them, and you would think about it, and 80% of the time or more, 90% of the time, you're talking about them. The more they talk about them, they feel almost indebted to you to, oh wow, this guy's actually talking. He actually cares about me. Okay, no, I have this problem. Like, cool, I don't know how to fix that at all. But you need to talk to this guy from my company, and I'll have one of my techs come out to fix that problem, and next thing you know, we got a sale. So the same idea with real estate. It's like, I can just sell you, but no one likes to be sold. They like to be led,
Yeah.
right?
Well, most people, especially in tech, which is very fascinating, the journey that you went through. Most people in tech, just like you said, I mean, let's just call an apple, right?
Yeah,
They spend so much time with computers, and their IQ is super high because
yeah,
they're digesting technical things and then putting things together in a technical way, right? But they're not really interacting with people as much, and so they are lean on one side of it. And you bring kind of the sales EQ aspects of it. And when I know that, in my younger days, when I was a tech guy, if I talked to somebody who was super outgoing or like ask me intriguing questions like that, that's very interesting to me because that's not something that I normally do, right? And so that brings me to the point about, like, hey, for real estate agents, I mean, they come from all different walks of life and all different kinds of background. And really, a lot of the common denominator is like, oh, I can make a lot of money, right? And so if you tell
yeah,
the tech guy, hey, you can make a lot of money in real estate, he's going to go try to do that, right? Because you can make a lot of money if he's frustrated working, whatever, 14 hours a day, 70 hours a week or whatever. If you shared that with them, they were like, oh, well, I want to go into it. How do you do real estate? How do you do this and that? And they go into it from the aspect, but not having that actual sales, IQ that you mentioned. And then we have other people that, that may be part-time or things like that. But my point here is the majority of people that go into real estate don't have any sales background, and they don't have any idea how to even, get a client, talk to a client, provide them something and sell something. So are you running into that when you talk to other real estate agents as well?
yeah. There's a lot of people who, like, I have a team. I audition or interview agents all the time, and we have a small team. There's only 3 other agents on this team, and I've had up to 9, 10 agents on the team at this time. But when the market was easy, it was hard to tell who was actually skillful.
Right.
And as the market got more challenging, you start to figure out, okay, this probably isn't the best fit. This one needs to move here. This one needs to move there, or this needs to leave. Like the best book that I think I read early on in my career was "Good to Great" by Jim Collins. So it's
Mm-hmm.
about having the right people in the right seats on the bus, and sometimes it means letting people off the bus so they can go find their own best seat. But yeah, that's one thing I find is a lot of people that got their license because they thought it was easy money or whatever it is, and they're not really looking to do the work or to do it properly.
Yeah. I mean, that what like when you talk to them, what do you think is the most like common myth about going into real estate, that they didn't know?
Set your own hours. That one, that one. To like, I'll have interviews with people who aren't even fully licensed yet, and they're still taking the courses. And well, what has you excited about real estate? I got to set my own hours. I'm like, yes, you get to work. You got to take whatever time off that your clients are working. So that means every evening and every weekend you're on call. So that's one of the biggest thing I found there. is that aspect. And then the other aspect I think that's unspoken is how much money, at least in Canada, I'm not sure what the States is like, but how much money you lose out of each commission check because there's so many hands in your pockets. The board has to get paid, the insurance has to get paid. Like there's all this overhead that you have that so many people don't even consider.
Yeah, and that's not even starting to do your job yet. That's just the basics so that you can get some access, to some data. You have advertising expenses, marketing expenses. You have simple things like even gas, right? We drive a lot.
Yeah.
We got to be we got to be on hand. We got to be there. Now you might go through with a client and sometimes you lose count. Hey, show them homes for 3 weeks. You may have shown them 10, 15 homes at least, sometimes more. And then you have the inspections, and then you have repeats, and going back and forth. So that's why being more local is more advantageous, because otherwise you're driving 30 minutes each way, and that really adds up, right?
Oh yeah. Like actually this past weekend I had someone who wanted to go take a look at a property. It's one of the ones I'm selling. Usually I just get someone on the team to do it, but right now we're battling with colds and stuff like that. So I ran out to go show it to them, and it is a bit of a 40-minute drive for me, which is not a problem. It's in the country, so. But showed up, was there early, all ready to go, and sure enough, I get a call 5 minutes before they're supposed to be there. Hey, we're actually not going to make it. Something came up. Let's reschedule. I'm like,
Yeah.
awesome. That's great.
Yeah,
So
I've actually I had a meeting 1 county away, so that was like 30, 45 minutes away, and then I had to go a whole different direction north to LA to show 3 or 4 condos to this client, and I get same thing. I was like 15 minutes before. I actually got there early because I knew I had a long drive. I want to make sure I get there early just in case there's traffic. And then after almost 2 hours of driving, he said he's not going to be able to make it.
yeah,
So now I got
that's
to
the
drive
worst.
back. That's not even the driving
So,
back.
and I think that's the thing that most real estate agents get into, and they realize like, oh, I'm gonna show some houses, I'm gonna get paid. Well, what about all the? Honestly, they should make HGTV. Like you and I should work on it. You can do the U.S. version, or the Canadian version of the nightmares that real estate agents go through. Like this,
Yeah.
the struggles that the not so good side of real estate.
Yeah, I think is important, because if all the real estate agents or wannabe real estate agents are getting their license, or like they should just like watch it for like 5 hours or something like that before they get into it, and like, oh, okay.
So,
So
oh, this isn't selling sunset. Oh man.
I know. I mean, they just sell you all. I mean, this stuff is, first of all, that stuff is not even real, right?
Yeah.
Not real transactions, not real clients, not real conversations. And you don't just like
No.
all of a sudden in the next clip, fast forward like, a week later, when the client has been, going back and forth with you like, 100 times before they say, okay, we actually like this house, right? You don't see that. You
Yeah.
just get a jump cut and we're like, oh, great. You want that house. All right, let's go.
Or they're like, yeah, we actually like this house. Like, perfect. That's already sold.
Right,
Yep.
right,
You took
right.
too long, and now there's an offer on it. So,
So
yeah.
so that being said, what are 1 or 2 pieces of advice that you would give to prospective agents? And I guess number one, people who are getting licensed and want to get into the industry, and two, to be specifically more on your team, what's required for you guys to consider them. I mean, is there uh, a personality trait that you need to have, or is there any kind of things that they would could bring you? What are the type of people you're looking for?
Yeah. So, I guess for the people who are prospective, who are looking actually at getting their license and doing all that stuff, I would stop watching HGTV, and stop watching all that garbage, and actually just go find a team, start looking and interviewing teams, and sit down with team owners or whoever's running the team and get an idea of what the team is like and try and get real information. So you don't waste your money on these courses or whatever if you're not going to be a good fit for the industry. But then just go line up with that. Go take them out for coffee. Go see if you can sit in the office and just be a part of that culture for an hour, 2 hours, or whatever it looks like. Find a real estate agent in the area if it's not a team, but maybe a mentor, and do some ride-alongs. Get an idea of what it's go to show, and do not pick a luxury agent because a luxury agent takes a lot of time to build up. So I would say just go find your average one who's been doing business for 3, 4 years, and just do some ride-alongs and see the disgusting houses that you're a part of. See the heart-wrenching parts where you have a tenanted home, but they're going to be selling it, and that means they're going to be out on the street. So you got to like really get into that part of the emotion that you don't realize you're going to see. So that's the biggest thing I would say with a prospective person is go for at least a minimum coffee, if not a ride along for a day on a Saturday. It'll do you so much good. And as far as our team goes, there are some things that we have as far as we want you to be in the office at certain times. We want you to be like you are calling. We have lead generation systems. People opt in to work with to receive marketing, but you still have to call. So that's part of it for us is we want to see be able to call. It really comes down to the interview process and like, are you hungry enough? If you're not hungry enough and you think it's just going to be handed, that's a different story. And even agents right now who have been licensed for a year, 2, 3 years, there's a huge difference between a lead and a referral. A lot of people who join teams think, oh, I'll take the referrals, please. And you're like, no, no, no. There's leads. You got to qualify them. They're good. They are good leads. They just take a little bit of effort.
Yeah, I mean
So
it's
that's
a long list of things before they actually become clients, and I think you're absolutely right. There's you some we're talking to a lot of buyers right now, and of course, interest rates are high, and they're like, well, I don't know if I can, afford it. I'm going to wait for it to come down, and that kind of things. But at the end of the day, you cannot. I tell them you cannot buy a home from the internet. Like you actually have to go see some homes, right?
yeah,
They think what they feel, and the pictures are being shown is what the home is. And when they show up, see the home, it's actually completely different. We'll pick five
yeah,
homes to show them, and they have maybe their top one or two, like, oh my god, this is great, these are the two homes we really really want. Well, let me pick three other homes to show you, just so you have a comparison. And sure enough, those two that they really liked, they didn't like because they didn't know this, they didn't know that. The floor plan was different. They didn't realize, that they only show the best views, right, of the stuff. Just because they, had a pretty picture doesn't mean that when you show up, it actually looks good. When you're in person, you can see every scratch. You can see every tone of the paint and what the real carpet condition is, because you notice that people take pictures and they just basically white out everything. They paint everything white, all the neutral white color furniture, all stuff. You can't actually see, any imperfections. But when you show up, you can see, if it's crappy paint, even if it's white, right?
yeah.
And so you just can't buy a home, from the internet, period. Right? You got to
No,
show up. And the same thing with real estate agents. You cannot sell a home and you cannot land a client and close a transaction without talking to people. Like you can't, leads come online. You're like, oh, great, but you stop there and you don't talk to them. You don't find a way to talk to them. Find out what their story is, which is probably, I would say, 70% of the job. Is if you know what their story is, which is what you mentioned, their motivation. Hey, what's your situation? And they tell you, oh, because of this, that, we want to buy this, we want to go here, whatever the situations. Then you can lead into that. But that requires a conversation. Now you can do a little bit of conversation through text, okay, but you're not, as a real estate agent, you're not real to them until you
yeah,
are, technically, until you actually show up and see them face to face, whether it's a coffee appointment or whatever it is. Even on the phone, they still don't believe you're real. Like, they just don't feel it. They may not tell you that, but at the end of the day, you still have to, do the actual real person to person, which is why we'll never be replaced by technology, right?
no, I don't think so either. And that's the biggest thing too is getting these people in person. If they're generated from the internet, there is actual. I hate scripts, but I love scripting psychology. So one thing is like I won't write out say this word for word for word for my agents, not a chance. But I've taught them different keys, and I put a course together for them called 28 Keys of Selling Real Estate, and the whole concept behind the scripting, you could maybe call it, is I give you little keywords to say, and then you translate that into getting them in person. So if I can do this, then would you do this? Or just certain things, but also to help put them at ease. So it's like internet dating. You don't want to get on that first phone call. Hey, want to get married right away? Like, no, 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 no. Let's get to know each other first. Let's go on a date. Let's go do a low profile thing. And that's where I even tell the agents, like, let's just remember when you're trying to date someone online, you're not like asking them to marry right away. You're just like, I'm going out for coffee. You want to come with me? So it's more of a, hey, I'm going to be in the area of houses that you're searching for on Saturday between 10 and 1. Did you want to go take a look at a couple? Like, oh, we're not buying this. We're not buying on Saturday, but I could book 3 or 4 in that area that you're looking, in your price point. We're just going to browse, take a look, because like you said, photos and in person are night and day. Just like internet dating, you show up, you're like, that is not her.
Right.
So,
yeah. I mean, we hear all the time from agents, oh, we can't convert. How do we convert? What's the magic script? Blah, 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 blah. Well, did you ask to just meet with them? Like you convert just by meeting them for a few minutes, or you could be trying to, email them, text them, all the time for the last 3 months, right? But yet, if you just meet them for 5 minutes, all of a sudden, like I said, you're real to them, and you all of a sudden convert. They're like, oh, I remember you. When you send a text, like they don't remember you after 5 minutes later, right? So
well, and also like I would say using technology, like there's a bomb is a good option, or other video options, but go to a house yourself that might fit what they were looking for and say, hey, I was just out here in this neighborhood looking for another client, and I thought, hey, you're also looking for this one, for something like this. Take a little quick video of you actually in the house with your face on that camera, and then send it to them, because then you've now just created one more touch point closer. So you're not just a text message, you're not just a phone call. They can see your face. They're going to slowly gravitate to connection more with you. Yeah. And then, like you said, get them in person.
Yeah, I think that's our mutual friends Vikram Deol and Cody May out there. They talk about that all the time, because they're in the business of number one, coaching agents, and number two, transferring live calls to them. And sometimes they don't pick up the phone, right? And they don't and then if they do pick up the phone, they forget about setting the actual in-person, appointment, to build a relationship with them. Maybe it's not the right fit. You never know. You may not even want to work with them, if you meet them. So, but definitely give that a chance to just make sure that happens. So all really great tips for newer agents as well as more seasoned agents, but more so for the newer agents. I feel bad for them if nobody have told them. Then they can go on for months and years of not knowing that, and they have a bad start to their career and then end up dropping out.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's a burnout rate in this industry because people are putting their efforts in the wrong spot. Like, I love the 80-20 rule, where you put like 80% of your business comes from 20% of your efforts. And there's some people who just blast and work so hard on 80% that doesn't do anything. They're constantly getting ready, there's a whole, I'm not sure if you know what are into the disc profiles, but there's a lot of analytical people out there that are like, I need to perfect this. No, just get it right. We're launching a podcast, and I don't have all the details. Like, you are way farther in advance in this world than I am, but I'm just going to jump in and figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I think, just taking action is the big thing. And we talk about it on this podcast a lot is, you have a lot of people who are the when I people. When I have this, I'll do this. When this happens, I'll do that. When the interest rates come down, I'll do this. When the prices come down, and that's totally fine. Like, I'll tell the buyers, I said, hey, you're worried about the interest rates. I get it. It's much higher than we're used to. But at what percentage rate, then you'll take action. And I'll tell you, I don't. It's tough to hear because most of them don't even know. They just want a lower rate,
Yeah.
but they don't know what rate is actually a lower rate. They're like, hey, the prices are too high. Well, at what price is a good price? They actually don't know. They're just hearing
Yeah.
all this news and hearing articles and reading stuff and like, oh my god, the the real estate market is crashing. Don't buy right now and all that kind of stuff. Well, when is the right time to buy? That's fine. You know when not to buy. Maybe right now is not the buy for you, but when is the right time so that when that happens, you're ready to go.
And actually, for any real estate agent watching right now, the best answer that our team has been using on those phone calls is perfect. What is your experience with timing the market? Flip it back on them. Oh, I want to wait till this. I want to wait till that. Well, what is your experience with timing the market? And then they'll, oh, I don't know. I've never done that. Perfect. Do you have access to the tools and metrics and statistics? If you're an analytical person, do you have the analytics? No,
Yeah.
you probably don't. But I do, and we can watch it. And I can actually, in Hamilton, Ontario, we can actually show you on the housing price index, it's bottomed out and it's now starting to recover. Interest rates haven't changed though. So for anyone who's like, oh, I'm going to wait for the bottom,
Well,
on a
how would
graph,
you
it
know?
looks like we've passed it.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
how will you know when the bottom happens, right? Like, let me show you. Okay, here's the graph, and here's where we are. And if it goes up, what will you do? If it stays the same, what will you do? If it goes down, what will you do? But if you don't even know where you are, how do you know if gone up,
Yeah.
stay the same, or went down? So, unfortunately, I think it's just the current condition of how our news and media and all that kind of stuff is concerned is not helping people, and so we're kind of fighting the good fight in just helping people like really understand, hey, like, I don't have to sell you anything today. I don't have to sell you anything in the next 3 years if you are not ready to buy. But let's have a educated conversation. Maybe you might find out that you're actually in a good spot to do that, but you didn't know, right? And build that
Yeah.
relationship with them and giving them that information, which is what I think is a good thing with all the medias that we have. We have the power to be able to voice, our opinion and data and stuff like that, where in the past we didn't have to. If the news said this, that was it. Like, you couldn't reach anybody. So if you're a real estate agent, or becoming a real estate agent, like, you just have to know your stuff, and then put that out there and let people know that you have it, have the data, and that you have the expertise to talk to them. So I think that's super. At least that's a positive aspect of it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And actually, with the rates right now too, one thing we're telling agents or clients, sorry, is date the rate, but marry the house. Right? It's because it's only a short period of time that you're gonna have this rate, whether it goes up or down.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
super interesting too. In our market here in California, we are positioning our buyers so that when there's a reduction, they can put that toward buying down the rate. And so it's
Yes.
nothing out of the buyer's pocket. And so we want to share that with them, like, hey, let's help you find a situation where the seller do need to sell and are willing to take a cut from the price, and we'll take that price. Instead of dropping the price down, we can take their concession to actually buy down the rate. So you think you're gonna have a 6.5% rate, all of a sudden, without any money out of your pocket, you could be at a 4.5% rate. Okay, and so
Yeah.
without knowing that possibility, they just keep thinking it's too expensive, too expensive, too expensive. So those people out there right now who are in the market or might be in the market, just make sure you have the right guy to help you kind of navigate that, so you can make the right decisions. Because you don't know the data, you don't know the strategy. How can you ever make any decision? Can you imagine going out into uh, the ball playing field, not even knowing what the rules are or knowing what the strategies you can take? Like, you're going to lose every single time, right?
Yeah, and also one thing I love about this market right now, which is crazy to hear a lot of real estate agents bash the market right now, or the public. But the one thing I love about this market right now is there's so much fear in the consumer mindset. And when there's that much fear in the consumer mindset, there's so much more opportunity that you're missing out on. Because that means the buyer pool is smaller, and supply and demand or absorption rate is going to be majorly affected by all this fear. So you can actually capitalize on the rest of the population's. But once, like you said, once the rates come down, whatever that might trigger point be for consumers, then guess what? Now you just release a ton more buyers into and you're going to start watching the pendulum swing the back the other way again.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And our markets could be a little bit different, and just at the end of the day, really get with someone like you and your team to just get the data, right?
Yeah.
And then kind of maybe for you guys to be able to share a couple of different strategies depending on their situation, and then they can decide yes or no if that's something that they would like to do. Um, so aside from all of that, strategies and all that, you said that the market is kind of recovering a little bit for you guys, which many people may not know. Can you talk about the market a little bit more for people?
Yeah, so I like to follow different metrics, different standpoints. Right now in Southern Ontario market, the absorption rate is starting to drop. So that is the calculated number of buyers that are coming based on how many listings are active. And so we're actually seeing that drop because a lot of sellers are who were selling just because they thought they were going to try and cash out are being realistic now. Sorry, and but the demand is starting to come up because it looks like, at least it seems like in Canada, that they're not raising interest rates anymore. So we've kind of plateaued. And some banks are even starting to give you the fixed version for cheaper than the variable version. And so what we're seeing now is some buyers are starting like, okay, if I can buy, I'm starting to actually look again. But there's less houses hitting the market. So we're actually starting to see, like just 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, I had multiple offers on a house that had been sitting for about 180 days. So that's the kind of mentality that's happening. People are realizing, okay, we're at what looks like it could be the worst for interest rates. And if it's only got one way to go, which is down, which means if I lock in now, I'll avoid any further escalation in prices, and I can redo my mortgage in the future with a lower rate, but take today's pricing. We're starting to see that. I also love watching, I'm not sure if you guys have the same metrics we do, where you can take the housing price index and actually match that up against different types of homes. So what we found was, obviously, if you have a single family, usually that would be a bungalow or whatever, a single family detached, you watch that one because that seems to be like the median number, or the median type of house that will predict whether condos, like apartments or townhouses or 2 stories, will move. So when you actually start to see, we saw that the 2 stories dropped too far, that it actually came so close to the single family, the lines almost touched. So you saw in the month of January a sharp correction because of how far they dropped in the housing price index. So we actually watched those as a stock market. I would say that your condo apartments are very much like a bond, because they're very slow moving, very minus when COVID first hit and people didn't want to be crammed together because they thought it was like SARS. You would watch that. That's the only time that you see a huge correction in condo, because they don't want to be packed together. But otherwise, once the knowledge of the coronavirus came out that it wasn't like SARS, then like there's very little movement with condo apartments, which is fantastic for first-time buyers. But then you start looking at the other ones and how they react. You can start seeing, okay, well, townhouses are climbing too high, and it's going to almost hit the single-family detached homes. So one of two things is going to happen: either the townhouses are going to drop, or you're going to find the single detached families go up. So that's when we started watching all that. And right now, with the current market, the single family homes have kind of plateaued. Condos are doing pretty much the same thing, but the 2 stories came down and then they started shooting up, and that area of the market seems to be the people who are upsizing, which when you have an increase in interest rates, upsizing is the first thing that gets affected. They just stay put a little longer. So that's what we're seeing right now, is the 2 stories are starting to shoot up, which means that there's going to be more activity in the single family detached.
So as soon as you can see something like that, just to share with everybody out there, when you can start to see something that's kicking up, it'd be a good opportunity for you to get in, because your equity would go up if you knew the relationships of all these things that you're describing.
Exactly, yeah. And so that's where we've seen the 2-story go up. So if that goes up for one more month in a row, then it's going to be a really good time for the single family detached homes to get locked in, because otherwise, unless that 2-story comes down, there is nowhere but the single family detached to go, especially if you start seeing influential factors of the townhouses starting to rise, then there's no point. Why would you buy a townhouse for the same housing price index price point that you could buy a single family detached?
That's right.
So as the ownership levels increase, if the two stories are starting to gain some track distance and the townhouses are getting too close to the single family detached, that is a really good percentage point that will have to correct, which
Right. Right.
means you can actually follow the market like the stock market that it actually is, which
Yeah,
is very fascinating.
they're
And that's
related to each
yeah,
other, right? So you can see, it has to kind of keep up with each other. Why would you buy, like you said, why would you buy the same priced condo versus the same priced detached single family home? You would rather have a single detached home where you didn't have any other expenses and things like that, such as HOA and all that kind of stuff. And most people are just more comfortable having a single family home because that's just their view of how home ownership is, right? So if they had a choice, they would
yeah.
pick that every single day, right? If prices and location were similar.
And actually, when I'm working with flippers, there's a whole area that is so misunderstood by flippers, and that is townhouses. Townhouses are so volatile, but that makes them the perfect house to flip because there's only usually two external walls. The other two are internal. So there's a lot less to do on the exterior of the house to get it ready. So you just got to go into one, lipstick on a pig, or clean up what you need to do on the inside of the house. And you can buy that because you can watch that when there's so much distance between the townhouses and the single family detached, and they're so close to condos, that's when you pick them up. And then you just hold it for when it gets to the point where it's back together close. So it might be 3 months, 4 months, but once it happens, that's when you throw it on the market because you can actually flip that house in like 6 months and get an extra like an immense return on it just because the market moves so fast in the townhouses because it's constantly ping ponging between condo to detached. So because it ping pongs so volatile, you can line it up a lot easier.
Yeah, and with condos, a lot of times they have maintenance around the outside that you don't have to worry about as a flipper. That's already baked into the monthly cost. And when you can do a good job on the interior side and not have to worry about for us, we don't have to worry about termite is usually covered by the community. The external paint and roof, because it's joined with other units, it's covered by the community, and so you don't have as much to worry about structurally. But if you can
Yeah.
remodel that on the inside, then you can get a lot of value out of it, and that's where the flipping can happen.
And you can even look at, so when you actually look at the housing price index instead of as a whole for the region, you just bring it down on a micro level for that neighborhood or I guess you would say county for you guys, then you can actually look at that and see the history. So you can see how many months between each ping pong. So if you know that it's short, you want a quick closing so you can kind of capitalize on that within a 2 month period.
Right.
But if it's a longer period, maybe it goes over the course of 5 months, then give yourself a 60, 90-day close, get in there, flip that thing in 6 weeks and back on the market, and you can kind of time it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a really good idea for the investors out there. We have a lot of investors. We're working with a lot of investors. It's all very, very good. And for people who are just kind of maybe if they even have only done one or two deals is also really good. This is why investor-friendly real estate agent is so valuable, right? This is where we can
Yeah.
show them, where they can put their money and how they're going to get their money back and do all that calculation for you. Thank you, Donald. That's amazing. I love all that insight, because, sometimes people just don't know, don't understand until they work in real estate day in and day out. And especially somebody like you, because not only are you doing that for the clients, but you're also doing that with the real estate agents and showing them how to do stuff and how to strategize for them as well, so that they can perform is super, valuable on both sides. You mentioned you have a resources for everybody. You had an ebook or some sort.
Working on an ebook. I have a course that I've kind of put together, but I will be trying to actually put that in place over the next couple months. It just takes time with recording it, but recording it and actually pumping out an actual course. I think we're going to go with fear, which actually kind of goes with my hat too. Where was it?
Yeah.
Camera, there you go.
Yeah.
So it's just forgetting everything about rejection, right? Because in the real estate world, there's so much fear. around so many things, and it's based on most time being rejected.
Yeah.
Right? So getting on that phone call and being afraid of being shot down,
Yeah.
or maybe your last listing was a horrible situation with the seller, so you're afraid of listing again. You want to switch over to buyers. So it's like that fear. And so I am trying to put together a course on forgetting everything about rejection, and that in that we'll have a lot of tips, training, some mindset stuff, definitely a lot of scripting to help you overcome that, so you feel more confident in the different avenues. But yeah, that's something that I should have within the next couple of months. I hope, but
Yeah, super
yeah,
great.
definitely.
It's one thing that everybody could always learn more about as I talk to everybody, out there and meeting people and talking to them. It's just a lot of fear out there, and whatever we can do to help them, with that is going to be very helpful, going forward. Because we're not trying to sell clicks. We're trying to sell, a service, a expertise, an advisory, service that we're giving people. And so looking forward to your course being released. So maybe we'll talk then about how that went, and we can help get that out there for you. And then
Yeah.
as per tradition on the show, we always ask our guests to share maybe one or two quotes to give to the world. And you want to share yours with us, Donald, and then tell us what that means to you.
Yeah, so I've got one in the training room where a lot of the agents usually kind of go, and I can't see it, but I'm in my office, and that one is super true for any real estate agent. It's called "Everyone wants to eat," or sorry, it says "Everyone wants to eat, but few are willing to hunt." That one I think is incredible for real estate agents, just as a mindset. Everyone wants to come in and get those paychecks, and everyone wants to work, so they say, but few are willing to pick up the phone and do it. Just as Vikram and Cody were talking, like they do the live transfers, but they're almost expecting, hello? Yeah, I want to go buy a house. Perfect, let's go. Like that doesn't happen. So few are willing to put in that time. And that's what I look for as a team owner is like I have no problem supporting, helping and helping that person really grow their business, but they have to be willing to hunt for it. It's not this is in real estate. You're a hunter, not a gatherer, I guess you could say.
Right.
And then the other one is this one behind me. It says dreams weigh more than excuses, and I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's an elephant on one side, that way, and there's a butterfly on the other side, and that one, like when I first got into this industry, I did not want to commute an hour and a half every single day to Toronto. I have a young family. I've got a 4-year-old and 2-year-old right now, and my idea was, my dream is to grow this business, to do this so that way I can help my family out. And so as long as you know your why and why you're doing something, that's your dream, the motivation behind your dream. So whatever excuse I have, like, oh, I'm sick today, I don't feel good. No, I'm still gonna pick the phone up and I'm gonna start calling, because my dreams are more important than a temporary. Okay, I might have some sinus congestion. Okay, let's just do a nasal rinse, and I'm gonna hit the phones hard for 20 minutes, and then I'm like, okay, as far as I can go. And if I get a good call, I'm not gonna just stop at one call. I'm like, perfect, I'm gonna use that energy and just jazz myself up for more.
Yeah.
But that's my biggest thing, and gamify things. Like I don't know about you, but when I first started out, I used to get hang-ups. I got cussed up and down on the phones, on the calls. And so you're like, you can either let that get to you, or you can gamify it and be like, I started a whiteboard and I'm like, all right, I'm going to get to 100 points this week. And an appointment got me 15 points, and a hang-up got me 1.5 points. And so I was like, oh, that's still a point in the board.
Yeah.
And there we go. So, but yeah.
You can only improve what you can measure, right? So I'm
Exactly.
a big proponent of that. It's just making sure that, hey, if you don't know how many phone calls you made, like, how are you going to get better tomorrow?
Yeah, if you can't track it, why are you doing it? That's my biggest thing too.
Right. That's right. So dreams way more than excuses. I love that. I think people always see things, that's only tangible, and that's the intangible, right? The
Yeah.
Dreams are an emotion that fuels you, right? Where if you're just looking at just purely on an action basis and without being fueled by your dreams, then you're gonna quit. That's all there is. You're just gonna quit, and so
Oh, yeah.
with any hard thing, we all need that. So, we try to do our best on our podcast to inspire people, and that's very inspiring. You cannot just rely on just brute force and your physical force. You actually have to, be smart about it and be motivated about it, because without that, you have no energy.
Well, it's actually funny. We were talking about how similar we are, and our motto, like our our quote, I guess you could say, for the company, a vision statement. That's the word I was looking for. Is inspiring others to live out their dreams and reach their full potential. So like that's who we are as a core of a company, is to inspire, and that's exactly what you just said. Like we want to inspire others as realtors to live out their dreams, achieve whatever that is that they're trying to get to, problem solve, as we were talking earlier, and reach their full potential. Because of whatever situation they're at right now, they're being held back.
Yeah, amazing.
So,
Well, thank you so much, Donald. You bring so much wisdom to the world, and I appreciate you for being here and taking the time. What's the easiest way for people to get a hold of you or reach out to you?
yep. So you can actually email me. I'm pretty good on my email. So Donald at porterassoc.com. That one's pretty good. Or even just hit me up on social media. Facebook or Instagram would be It's Me, Donald Porter. I can help. Whatever way, if you have questions, I'd love to chat for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Donald. And as always, we will wish you all a good day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.